see fraud, we see similar fault. Now, sometimes you'll get individuals who will basically present this ideology that Social Security fraud doesn't happen, it doesn't exist. Sometimes they just don't like Elon, sometimes they don't like DOGE, but the bottom line is OIG, the Office of Inspector General, has been rocking it for many, many years before Elon even got into the government sector, to go ahead and collect all of these bad fraudsters that are taking away your money. And I got to say this real quick at the end of the day. I think it's incredibly important for you guys to keep in mind that as a bottom line figure to this entire thing, as a bottom line overall, you have to understand that the government wants to catch fraudsters. They want to catch similar fault people. Now, where the gray area is, a lot of you guys get a little nervous about, is that when I read you this case law about people being investigated, people being reviewed, people being searched, the bottom line is that unfortunately at the end of the day, they are sending out investigators to meet you at your house, to follow you from where you go from your house to other locations, to speak with your friends, your family members, and those people who work at the shops that you buy items from. And that's where we get into this wiggle room, this back and forth of like, what is fraud? Who, as a disabled person, is committing fraudulent acts? Now, I want to point out one thing. The government is scared. They're very scared financially right now because at the end of the day, they have a problem. You know the trust funds are failing. You know that they run out. You know when they run out, 2033, 2034, potentially even 2032 because of the whole Social Security Fairness Act that was passed, which is ironic because it's fair for a small group of people, totally unfair for a larger group of people. The bottom line is this. We now have a new report that was just released, which has some very bad information about what's happening with the Social Security Administration. I want you to understand this before we go into the Office of Inspector General and who they recently basically went after. Here's the bottom line. Social Security sees dramatic increase in new filers should you claim early. Now, here's the bottom line with this whole thing. I don't want to spend too much time on it. Social Security has been in the spotlight, and this is by Donna Fuscaldo. Okay, so bottom line is this was just released. Has been in the spotlight ever since the Department of Government Efficiency began searching for waste and fraud in several government agencies, including the Social Security Administration. Adds concerns that the Social Security Trust Fund is running out of money to the mix, and many Americans are worried about their future benefits. So much so that the SSA reported in late April that it has seen a dramatic increase in the number of Americans filing for initial Social Security benefits since January. This increase is across age groups and from high earners to low income earners. What this means is that people are requesting their Social Security benefits sooner. So let's just focus on one program. Let's say retirement benefits, right? If you've got retirement benefits and they request those benefits sooner, right? They request the retirement benefits sooner. That means the trust funds are going to run out, you guessed it, sooner. So the problem is if these trust funds are not healthy, what does that make the government do? It makes the government fearful that the money isn't going to be there to pay you, the beneficiaries. Now, what do we know about old people? Old people are less afraid of jail. And let's just be honest, the politicians know this. They know that they could be sitting at a golf resort, having a martini or a screwdriver or a mudslide or a banana split alcoholic beverage. And then as a result of that, they end up in a place where they see a cloud of elderly people running towards them with their walkers in hands over their head, ready to go. And you have to understand that they don't want that scenario because they will lose their job. Politicians are afraid of losing their jobs. A lot of politicians are failed attorneys, but they're great salespeople and they know how to BS you guys. So at the end of the day, they, well, we'd love to see this pass and blah, 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 blah. All that kind of jazz. But the bottom line is that they are afraid of Social Security beneficiaries. Now, let me give you this little statistic real quick. According to the SSA, the highest 10% of earners applied at an earlier age than in the past 2 years. Moreover, as of the middle of April, 614,000 retirement claims for benefits are pending, which SSA officially said during the meeting is an extremely high number, which let me go ahead and translate that for you. They are in a shitstorm of applications right now. Now, let me explain this real quick. According to the SSA, the highest 10% of earners applied at an earlier age than in the past 2 years. Okay, what does that mean? People who basically wanted their benefits but wanted to maximize benefits would normally wait because you know how it works. 62 early retirement, 67 full retirement, and then basically 70 is your max retirement. Okay. But as a result of the intelligence and learning coming from YouTube, all these investment channels, people have essentially created a situation where, to be fair, these groups, right, of people that are wealthy, they know what they're doing, they're learning about new investments, because remember, you're getting a lot of doctors, lawyers, accountants, etc., learning about how to invest through YouTube. And now they're like, well, shit, I'm going to put my money into that. Same thing happens for older people that have new income streams coming in. Real quick, Princess Diana, a long time supporter, did a $5 donation. Hi, Walter. How is Shadow? Shadow is actually going to be going to surgery in the not too distant future. We're going to have a status update specifically on that. So I'm really excited about that. The other thing, too, is that we're going to have some videos and pictures of what he's up to, kind of the issues he's been having with his hip, and he will be going in for a full hip replacement. So that is a major ticket item that I've been watching on my schedule. Also, Rich Squires with the $10 donation. I super appreciate it. Let me give a little heart to that. Let's see. He said the biggest fraudsters at the end of the day is the government themselves. They have fleeced the fund. That's a good phrasing there. That's a really good. Okay, just a side note. They fleeced the funds. That's so good. I was talking with a guy the other day, and he was talking to me about, like investors and sponsors and things like that. And he said to me the smoothest, creamiest line. It was so good. I mean, it didn't tell me shit about anything, but it was so good. Like when somebody knows how to summarize an entire idea in one word. So he goes to me and says, well, you got to see how interested the sponsors are with a blush test and then roll from there. And I was like, oh, that's so good. Because, when you like something, you blush. And so that was the whole idea, is the spectrum of selling a whole idea in one word. And you did that there. Fleeced the funds. They're shaving the fleece right off the butt of those animals, right? Anyway, so since the 70s, it never paid the funds back that were taken for other use. The main truth of that is that, yes, the government has a bad system for you. They unfortunately take far too much money, use very low return on investment yielding properties, right? So special interest bonds that they do, they basically throw it into the trust funds. They then respend it on their own government activity and then pay you back in a small amount. But when they pay you back, they have to print massive amounts of money to go ahead and pay for those special interest bonds that they created. So remember, there's different ways that they receive money, but the most horrific way is they take the money that you pay in your entire life, they put it into special interest bonds. They then have those special interest bonds that they take and they spend it on government activities. And then when those bonds become due, let's say 15 years from now, they print the money to go ahead and pay back those funds, which means they are literally causing the devaluation of the dollar to pay for their own stuff from what you paid in originally. So yes, I agree. It is a shit show, not pleasant, not a good thing. But please remember, boop, to go ahead and give the ducky a like. He likes the like. Has a little squeaky. Let's hit that like button. Now, with that said, let's go over here real quick. The main thing that scares me is that because 10% of the earners applied at an earlier age, it means that the Social Security Administration is going to have a fraud issue in the future from investments, from people trying to steal investments, because a lot of these older people have now realized that are in the highest earning bracket that they don't want to wait for a higher check. They know, number one, the government has mishandled your money for such a long period of time that the government trust funds are going to have to go through a massive change to be able to survive, paying people in the future. So, number one, the benefits aren't necessarily going to be there in the same way in the future. Now, they will sell you on the Republican and Democrat side, okay, because remember, I'm neutral, I'm independent, I give you the middle line. They will sell you especially on the Democrat side, the idea that at the end of the day, right, these individuals will go ahead, okay, and, essentially, when it comes to trying to fix this thing, they'll go ahead and try and, screw over the younger people. They'll give the older people less money. And statistically, right now, we know exactly where they stand. They stand on giving people around 22 to 23% less money in about 8 to 9 years from now from their Social Security retirement benefits, because the trust fund for retirement is running out, and they want to take the Social Security Disability Insurance Trust Fund, the Disabled People's Trust Fund, suck it into the Retired Trust Fund, and then put the disabled people in 1 year in the same boat as the retired people. So everybody would get essentially 22%, 23% less per month. So if you think about that 8 or 9 years from now, you would be receiving the same check you get right now, just 8 or 9 years from now, which financially means you would be homeless for many of you, which is absolutely terrible. It's horrible. But what concerns me is this notation right here. According to the SSA, the highest 10% of earners applied at an earlier age than the past 2 years. And the reason why this is happening is because the higher percent earners know that they can pull the money now while it's still big before they have to reduce your benefits, and they can spend it on an investment. So that's another rental home right there. So let's say they're getting a $3,000 check, a $3,500 check, a $4,000 check per month. That's a mortgage on 1 or 2 rental homes, and boom, they're making way more money. They're pulling in $10,000 to $12,000 every single month that they pay for those houses' mortgages. Now remember this: after they've had that rental home for a year, they can use it with a bank to pull a loan against it. So these wealthy people know that after a 10-year period, they could build up, essentially a $30,000 a month income off of just using their Social Security benefit, retirement benefits right now to play the rental home game. They're smart. They know what they're doing. They've learned from a bunch of YouTubers who did it. So now this whole thing is transitioning. But remember this: when more people have Social Security benefits, there's more fraud related to it. When there's specialized programs to assist people, there's more fraud related to it. Because COVID, there was tons of fraud happening with that. It seems like every 2 to 3 days, we're seeing an imprisonment or a prosecution against one of these individuals when it comes to fraud. Case in point, OIG. Let's talk about OIG, the Office of Inspector General. Over here, OIG basically, and I know what you're thinking, right? Mexican national guilty of illegally using Social Security number to obtain Louisiana driver's license. Yes, Trump was right about, obviously, having welded open gates on the border is not a smart idea. I think we all kind of had that. I know a lot of people, I know around a little bit less than 50% of the country were okay with it. But at the same time, obviously, having borders as a nation when it comes to protecting your Social Security benefits is important. But I want you to remember one particular item, and I think it's incredibly important. I think it's incredibly relevant to your situation. The one thing you have to keep in mind as you go through this: how do these criminals obtain and properly use Social Security numbers? First of all, how do they know they're valid? Let's say you get a Social Security number. How do you know it's valid? So let's say you're, an illegal immigrant or a legal immigrant and you're doing something shady, right? You then you're going through your naturalization, or maybe you're not, whatever, it doesn't matter. But you then go to get a job. You have to submit a Social Security number. You go to the bank, you want to get a loan. You go to the bank, you want to open an account. You have to have a Social Security number. The point here is, how do these individuals, these individuals that are here using fake, or no, they're technically real Social Security numbers, but for fraudulent purposes, how do they know they've got a good one? How do they know they've stolen a good one? How do they buy a usable Social Security number? And that's what upsets me when I go through a lot of this stuff, because it's just very, very upsetting. Walter, you celebrate Cinco de Mayo? That would be the 5th of May. So I guess maybe. I guess I feel like, yeah, sure. All right, now here we go. Let's go through this real quick. This is from May 5th, 2025, Office of Inspector General, CDI unit investigation details, stuff like that. Let's go into it real quick. All right, New Orleans. Acting United States Attorney Michael M. Simpson announced that Jose Guadalupe Munoz Perez, also known as Munoz, age 46, a native of Mexico, April 29th, 2025, to illegally using a Social Security number to obtain a Louisiana driver's license in violation of Title 42 United States Code Section 408, subsection A7B. Munoz faces a maximum term of imprisonment of 5 years, up to 3 years of supervised release, a fine of up to $250,000, and a mandatory special assessment fee of $100. United States District Court Judge Wendy B. Vitter set sentencing for June 5th, 2025. Okay, so sentencing, June, right? He's going through it right now. They got him. They know what's going on. They've got the evidence against him. He's still going to go through the sentencing details. All right. According to court documents, on July 24th, 2020, Munoz applied for the renewal of a Louisiana driver's license using the name of a real person and that person's social security number at a public tag agency in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. A public tag agency is an authorized entity that handles various vehicle-related transactions on behalf of the Louisiana Office of Motor Vehicles. So it's like a side group that he went to go ahead with a fake social security card to get a driver's license for Louisiana. The Social Security Administration confirmed that the social security number was legitimately issued to an individual in Puerto Rico. Munoz admitted that by applying for the renewal, he knowingly intended to deceive others, including employers, by falsely representing that the name and social security number had been assigned to him by the Commissioner of Social Security. Now, U.S. Attorney Evans praised the work of Immigration and Customs Enforcement and removal operations in the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General in investigating this matter. You guys know how that works. You got OIG, you got the SSA, you got the Commissioner. They talk to OIG. OIG gets basically a CDI unit. The CDI unit sends them out to create an ROI, and that's how they catch these people. Okay, so bottom line is this. Assistant U.S. Attorney John Maestri of the General Crimes Unit is in charge of this prosecution. So what do you learn from this? What do you learn about this stuff? Somehow this guy purchased a social security number from an individual or, in Puerto Rico, or purchased it from a dealer of social security numbers who obtained it from somebody in Puerto Rico. And so one of the things you have to keep in mind is that there must be some sort of network of available social security numbers that have been tested related to people who maybe are alive, they're doing well, they're in Puerto Rico, or aren't alive, they're not doing well, they're in Puerto Rico, just not living in Puerto Rico. So, I mean, they're there, they're just not living in Puerto Rico, you know what I mean? So the bottom line here that you have to kind of keep in mind with this whole situation is that at the end of the day, you have to understand that Social Security has to go through this audit process. I know many of you are feisty and fiery and flubbery about basically the situation of, should they investigate the SSA? Should they audit the SSA? But please remember, y'all will be in a much shittier situation if they don't, because when this fraud occurs, I mean, sure, this isn't like he was just getting a license, you know what I mean? But when a lot of this fraud occurs, we're talking about $100,000 that was taken illegally. We're talking about $500,000. We're talking about $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $10 million, $50 million. It goes up to almost $1 billion for the most epic Social Security fraud that ever occurred. Unless you, of course, include the government for, potentially not, properly utilizing the funds that you paid in throughout your life. Well, then that goes into the trillions of dollars. If you look at them personally as like a criminal, organization in themselves, then yeah, at that point, what you get is essentially trillions of dollars of potential fraud. So my point with this video is to show you guys essentially what's going on so you have an understanding as to why we need to audit the government. Do I like that there's mass firings at the SSA? Absolutely not. Do I think that the SSA needs more personnel to make it run smoothly so that we don't have, 2 hour or 1 hour or 30-minute, even 800 call, phone wait time? Absolutely. We need to have a better system. We need to have so much more than we currently do. I mean, imagine that. Imagine if I said to you, hey guys, I'm going to start a program and I'm going to go ahead and charge you somewhere between 16 to 17%, like the 12.4 plus your Medicaid stuff. Or your Medicare stuff. So it's like 16, 17% of whatever you earn per, basically pay period. I'm going to take that away from you for your entire life. And then at the end of it, just to be clear, I'm going to pay you back this little tiny check per month. And you're going to have to you're just going to have to take it. That's basically it. And that is your Social Security. If we're genuinely honest with each other about Social Security benefits, we know that the Republicans attacking it because it's a program that doesn't have the capacity to pay what it should. We know that's true. We know that the Democrats providing essentially that, we need to build it out. We need to make it better. We need to make the check larger. We know that's true. So we have two entities that agree on the same thing. They just approach it in a very different way, right? Bernie approaches it in a very different way than Trump. Okay. But at the end of the day, the standard of living for the class of individuals, which let's just call it the fragile class, disabled, elderly, retired, widows, disabled children, etc. The point here is this special class of individuals cannot afford to live in America like they should. I think if we're just honest with each other and we agree on one thing, that both Republicans and Democrats at this point have no agenda in place that's actually going to save Social Security benefits. But in order to get to that program, In order to learn the point of that program, we must audit the SSA, because much of the federal government would not pass an audit that they require for companies to pass all the time when they file their taxes. So my point to you is, audit good, but we need a plan B for what comes after that, which is essentially, how do we make Social Security benefits larger on a monthly basis to support people who are part of the fragile class? Because there's no more future of people having savings accounts. That's gone. That's not going to happen. People don't earn enough. The dollar is devalued too much. There's no more future of people having pensions. That's gone. Doesn't exist. Unless you work for a big company or you're very, very high up, it's never going to be there. My point to you is this: 401ks are shit. IRAs are shit. They are not an acceptable means for a person to survive into the future of their life. We need to do better. We need to do a lot better. All right, bottom line is this: I hope you guys had an absolutely amazing weekend. I am in a different location right now. I will be later tomorrow night, be in the same location for filming. Please remember to give a little like. He likes the like. So with that said, Attorney Walter Hnot, please remember to like and subscribe. We're only going to be doing one video right now. We'll probably be doing a video later in the day tomorrow. I will catch you a little bit later. And please remember, on Mondays and Thursdays, I normally go live. As you know, I had a big event this weekend that's actually going till Tuesday. And with that said, if you need a private session for going over some difficult legal questions about Social Security disability law, there is a 1-hour private session option below. You can hire me for 1 hour. I'll figure out the problem. I'll give you a walkthrough, give you a timeline of what you need to do. Should be good to go. Also, of course, I don't usually do this, if you need a disability attorney for your hearing, or you're thinking about filing for disability benefits, call a bunch of disability attorneys. I'm Attorney Walter Hnot, the most viewed, subscribed to, and clicked on disability attorney in America. But the bottom line is, call a bunch of them, see who you like, and go from there. I will catch you all a little bit later. Please remember, and this is important, to take care of yourself. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. And, just remember, plan for the future. All right, I'll catch you all a little bit later. You have a wonderful night, and we'll go from there. Thanks so much. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.